matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
We are recording. Taylor, hello again. How are you doing?
Good. Same. How are you?
Also the same. Feeling
Great.
pretty mid, but energized.
Good. Are you going to go to yoga later?
So I actually went this morning.
Wow.
And then for a moment I was like, maybe I'll go again later this afternoon. But then again, people are coming in town and the house is a pigsty and the dogs are needing to go get walked and do all that stuff. So I'm going to skip it.
Impressed.
Thank you. I'm an athlete.
Sure. Yeah.
Whatever you say.
Okay. Cool. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Doomed to Fail. We bring you history's most notorious disasters, epic failures, twice a week, every week. I'm Taylor, joined by Fars. And
Yeah, I'm here too.
it's my turn.
It is Taylor's turn.
Cool. We're going to talk about something in the time period that you just talked about. So we're in the 1500s-ish in another part of Europe. And do you remember my last two episodes that were kind of prepping for this? Kind of.
Not really.
I did the Peasants' Revolt and Chaucer. And so
I do remember that,
either
but I
of
don't know
those.
how that would prep me for this.
I'm telling you that. I'm just telling you that there was actually a prep. So you understand kind of what's happening in Europe at this time. In the Peasants' Revolt, we talked about how peasants demanded more money because there were less of them post the Black Death and all of that. So that has happened. That happened in like the late 1300s. We're like 150, 200 years later. But things are still happening. Things, they move faster now than they did then, I think. But we're going to talk about my favorite cheese / a moment in time when thousands of people died.
Brie?
No, but I do like brie. No, Munster. It's a Münster Rebellion. Have you heard
Fun.
about it? So, for the record, Munster cheese is not from Munster, Germany. It's from a place called Munster in Alsace, which is between France and Germany, which is where my people are from, which is why I must like Munster cheese so much.
I don't know what mustard cheese.
It's like a very creamy, plain. I just eat it on toast.
Is it stinky?
No,
Okay, good.
it's
I wanna do
very
stinky.
mild. You only do stinky?
No, I can't do stinky cheese.
Okay, it's not stinky. It's
Okay.
normal. So Munster, Germany is in the northwest of Germany. It's kind of landlocked in the middle, not near any seas or anything, but there's rivers and such. And my sources are obviously a Dan Carlin. And again, I will make a personal pact to stop obsessing over Dan Carlin's Blue Sky after this episode comes out. But he did one called Prophets of Doom a long time ago. It was a one-hitter. It's 3 hours long. And
They're all 3 hours long.
no, but it's a one episode of 3 hours long. It's not
Wow.
six
Okay.
episodes. It's only one. There's only one.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And there's only one, and he talks about this. There's not a lot of information, especially not in English, because it's something that, there are books about it in German, but not that many in English as well. So I basically listened to his, but then I find this with Dan, my good friend Dan Carlin, that it helps me to listen to his stuff, get some sort of visual or other information about it, and then listen to it again, knowing what I know from that. So the Alexander the Great episodes that he's doing right now, the first episode, when he put that out, I had started to read an Alexander the Great book for this show, and then I was like, oh, I'm not going to do it because I want to wait for Dan's to be done. But having the context of that book, the first couple of chapters that I read, helped me understand what was happening when Dan was talking. I just needed to know a little bit more.
Well, I think we've mentioned this before. You kind of need to listen to his episodes
Yeah.
2 or 3 times because
Yeah. So for this one, I was working on it and then noticed someone posted on Reddit, on the Dan Carlin Reddit that I promised to not be on for a while, that there's a movie, and it was on the Internet Archive, and it's called, in English, it's called A King for Burning, but in German, it's called The King of the Last Day. It's in German. It's a made-for-TV movie from the 1990s. And you've been to Europe where people are a lot more naked on TV. Have you noticed that in Europe?
I did not notice that one. Yeah.
So I remember I went to Germany in 2000. So 25 years ago. And I was with my like the girl Michaela that I like study abroad switched with, and she was like, we were watching a movie and like there was like people were naked in it and it was like on TV and she's like, oh sorry. I was like, no, I just like it's like not made for TV movies in America don't have nude people that they do there. So anyway, there's a lot of nudity in this movie and they swear in German, but whatever. Not to like not like that's bad, but I'm just like saying that I was surprised that it was just like on regular TV when I went there when I was 18.
Sure.
Christoph Waltz is in it. You know who he is.
Oh yeah.
He's delightful. He's obviously a fantastic actor. And a woman named Deborah Kaufman is in it. And she's in a show called Dark, which is on Netflix. It's in German. It is so good. So if you ever, I'm sure they have it like dubbed as well, but it's also really great. So anyway, I watched that movie. It is 4 hours long, but it was worth it because it gave me some faces, even though they're like obviously not real faces, but it helped me like be like, oh, we're talking about this person and this person because there's several people with the same name in the story. So
Right.
you
Right.
usually do that. So I recommend it. So we talked about the Middle Ages in England. Germany is going to have its own peasants' revolt around 1500. So a little bit later than the one in England, but it's the same idea. Peasants are like, you can't keep treating us like this. Like things are really terrible, obviously, like all over Europe for people of that class. It's 1534, and we're in Germany, and we're full Renaissance because we were like end of Middle Ages, almost Renaissance. Now we're full Renaissance. The Mona Lisa is 30 years old. So we're in the Renaissance.
Yep.
So since we last spoke, and this ties into what you were saying as well, with like Protestantism and Catholicism. So Martin Luther did his treatise on the door of the church, basically saying that like the Catholic Church, they were selling indulgences, which was a ticket to get into heaven faster that you could buy for yourself or for someone else. And like, isn't that what they believe anyway, that they can just forgive people?
I don't know enough to know that.
Like, I don't think like this was obviously a scam, but maybe it was just more obvious of a scam than just like getting your sins
I think the difference is
revoked.
one is like I admit that I did something wrong and that clears my
Mm-hmm,
soul versus like
mm-hmm.
I don't care that I shot that guy in the head. I will
Here's 20
pay
bucks.
you. Yeah, here's $20. Just
Yeah.
make them think I'm not guilty.
And I don't have to tell you. That's true too.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That makes tons of sense. So Martin Luther translated the Bible from the original Greek into something that people could read, which is bad because the Bible says, be nice to people. And there shouldn't be ultra rich people and there shouldn't be ultra poor people. But humanity hates that. They don't want that to be the way that the world is. If, for example, hypothetically, the World Food Program from the UN told me that $6 billion would solve world hunger, I would not then give $6 billion to my own charity and not end world hunger. But sometimes rich people do that, and I don't
Wait,
know
I don't get
why.
it. What's say it again?
Elon Musk was like, basically, how much money would it cost to end world hunger? So the World Food Program said it would cost $6 billion. Here's a very detailed plan. He said, great. He took $6 billion, put it into his own charity, and never did anything with it.
I feel like there's a lot of simplification in that statement.
But yeah, but like,
Like,
but I think it's the same thing that like ultra rich and ultra poor, like that's just something we can't get out of.
yeah, because everybody wants to be ultra rich.
I know, but
Taylor,
but
if somebody said that you could have a private jet and you never have to work again, and all you could do is like be an archaeologist and you travel with your kids, and like, yeah, everybody in the planet would do that.
no, I know, but that's not what the Bible. But I would still help people. I would still
Sure,
like,
you'd
give to
help
charity.
people. It's just like I'm just saying, like nobody doesn't want to be ultra rich.
I know that's what I'm saying. That's why we can't have a society where like everyone is fed because people are always trying to be ultra rich.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're agreeing.
then where's the argument?
There isn't. I'm just stating some facts.
Got it. Got it. Okay, same page.
So, but the Bible says, that there shouldn't be ultra rich or ultra poor, but that's obviously the church hates that because they always want to like have gold as well. So, um, also the Catholic Church didn't stop doing sermons in Latin until the 1960s, at least in America. So my mom remembers when it switched from Latin to English. So
Yeah, that
it,
was like a bad move in terms of acquisition. To
yeah,
like, can you imagine if you could only see movies in a different language with no
yeah,
subtitles?
Yeah, you'd be like, well, then you'd have to interpret it on your own, which I guess is what the point was. But also, last podcast just did an episode about a shipwreck that had a new sect of Protestantism in it. So that is kind of why I was reminded to talk about this story as well. But essentially, out of all of the different sects of Protestants and Lutherans and people that came out of this are the Anabaptists. And they are people who think that, and this part I think is pretty normal, and the Anabaptist sect thinks that um, you should be baptized when you're an adult because then you can like give consent, essentially, which makes sense to me,
Yeah, I get it.
because there's infant baptism, which is like been on and off as a thing that people do. There is, you know, I think some people do it when like your kids, some people do it when you like reach adulthood, like whatever. But the Anabaptists in this time, their thing was like, we want you should be baptized when you're an adult. So Anabaptist means like baptized again. So people would get baptized again because they baptized with a baby, do it again. They wanted to have like communal societies, like based on like this, like everybody help each other thing that like the Bible says. And the Catholics and Lutheran like aristocracy pretty much was like, no, like you can't do that. We need to, have our fancy hats and such. So it's also an extreme part of the Anabaptists. There's always an end to time coming, of course, because there's always like, the world's going to end at this time. We need to be saved. You need to follow me. It might include violence, so you need to be ready for violence in case of the end times. And that can turn into something that's a smidge cultish, as you can imagine.
You said a smidge cultish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. And the example that Dan uses that he starts off with and it makes sense later is Waco, essentially. Like someone saying the world is ending, you all have to be with me. We are the last people on Earth, that kind of thing. Which I feel like one of us should do that eventually.
I sort of, yeah, probably.
Probably. I think we'll
It's
get
just
there.
it's just been done so many times by everyone.
I know, but so is
But
everything, you know.
anyways,
So so the Anabaptists are coming out of this Reformation, just FYI. So we're in Northern Europe. Munster is a beautiful German town. I've been there. I have not been there, but I've been to Cologne, which is bigger but has the same vibe. But you can imagine, like, it has a big cathedral. It has like these like beautiful houses. It was very, very, very much bombed during World War II, but it seems to be back to the way it was. So it's just like a typical German town. Also, we know Germany isn't like Germany at this point. It's a bunch of like principalities, but it's like in the space that German is, and they speak German. We've talked about that a lot. So we have our cast of characters in this story. We have the Prince Bishop. He's basically the head of the Catholic Church, and like so he's really, really powerful in Munster. His name is Franz von Waldeck. We're gonna call him the Prince Bishop. So you have Prince Bishop. We have the mayor, who is Bernard Knipperdolling. So he is the mayor of Munster, so like the non-religious governmental side, but he's still obviously very religious. We're going to call him Knipperdolling. And then there's two other Bernards that we will mention. There's Bernard Krechting and Bernard Rothman. We'll mention them like casually at the end. So there's two other Bernards, but the main Bernard is Knipperdolling. We're going to call him Knipperdolling. He's the mayor.
I can see why that
That
movie helped out a lot because it's a lot of the same.
it's a lot of the same name. Yeah, exactly. And then we have two Jans. We have Jan Matthis, which is funny because you also said Matthias earlier. He is a preacher. We're going to call him Jan Matthis. And we also have another Jan von Linden. I'm going to call him JVL. So Jan von Linden, JVL, Jan Matthis, two Bernards we're not going to talk about much. Bernard Knipperdolling, and the Prince Bishop. So it's 1534, and Jan Matthis has come to Munster from Holland. He enters the city on January 5th and starts baptizing people. One of the first people that he baptized, remember, this is like a re-baptism when you're adult, is one of the Bernards. So I think it's Bernard Krechting, who's the one that was first baptized. Nope, Bernard Rothman, doesn't matter. So Jan Matthis was following one of the original Anabaptists named Melchior Hoffman, which is a dope name. Melchior Hoffman lived up in the Netherlands, and Jan Matthis was following him, but also wanted to like have this like the end of the world is coming. We need to be a little bit more ready for some sort of violence. So he left and went down into Germany. Jan Matthis is someone who talks to God like God's there next to him. He will like stop and be like, what did you say? Okay, cool. As far as he says you're dumb. They'll come back.
It seems like a cheat code.
I know. So he will like he has an air button, like stop and listen to God. Um, he might have believed that he really did. So maybe there was like something wrong with him that he believed he was speaking to God. I don't believe it, but like I'm not a doctor, but like I don't believe that. I think these guys are all making it up.
Yeah,
But
you could just say whatever you wanted because who's gonna call you out?
exactly. Yeah. So yeah. So he says he's talking to God. He's married and he brings his wife with him to the city and he starts to preach and people start to listen. So when I say preaching, I mean he's like standing on a box in the town square yelling, the
Yeah, we
end is
have a lot of those preachers
coming,
here too in
blah blah
downtown
blah.
Austin.
And we have one. Oh, it's so stupid. He doesn't even yell. He just like has like a boom box and plays someone else yelling. Like, could you go home? But anyway, so people start to listen, and he says, God has told me that the end of the world is coming ASAP. It actually, he said earlier that it was coming to Strasbourg, but then it didn't happen. So he said, JK, it's Munster. He had to keep moving that goalpost. Um, and it's like, if you've read The Stand by Stephen King, it's like Boulder. It's like everybody come to this city where you will be saved. I know you haven't read The Stand.
Thanks for not even asking.
I wasn't going to ask, but if anyone out there's read The Stand, it's like Boulder. So these guys start like taking over hardcore. People start becoming Anabaptists. They start getting baptized, following Jan Matthis around, and it has not been long. It has been like a month, and people are doing this. So the Prince Bishop is getting very worried. Nipperdaling, the mayor, is getting very worried, and eventually. The Anabaptists expel all the non-Anabaptists from the city. They said you get an opportunity to get baptized again. And some people they believed, some people they didn't believe. Because I feel like now I'd be the kind of person that'd be like, okay, who cares? Like,
Yeah,
just don't kill me.
that's why I don't understand what the big deal is. Like, just do
Yeah,
it again. Who gives a shit?
right. But I feel like people really truly believed this. So some Catholics like would not do it. So they got kicked out like in the middle of the night. They raided all their houses, made everybody leave. You couldn't bring anything with you. People died. There was burning. They kicked out, thousands of people from the city. And now the city is just Anabaptists. And Munster is, again, like we talked about this with London, it's a walled city. So it has about like a 3 mile long wall all the way around it. And the wall is very thick. So like they're in the city and they can't, there's no way out, there's no way in. It's like they're very sequestered in the city now that they've kicked everybody out. After they do that, private property is abolished and it's kind of like a place where everyone shares everything. So you had to keep your door unlocked, people could come in and like grab your stuff. It was like a total like equal society. Quotes. It's not equal, but
Everybody who wants this would absolutely fucking hate this.
yeah, they hate it. I mean, most people just are just kind of trying to survive during the story. Um, there is a blacksmith who's upset about this. He's like, "This is crazy. Like, what is happening?" And he challenges Jan Matthis up in the town square, and he's like yelling at him. And Jan Matthis is thinking, like, "What do I do?" He's kind of scared. And then Jan van Leyden, JVL, comes in and stabs the blacksmith. And he eventually dies. He doesn't die immediately, but he eventually dies. And that really gives JVL his name because now he's someone who can like do the thing for the Anabaptists. So he's willing to like commit murder for this cause that like he believes in.
The blacksmith slayer.
Yes. Yes. So the people inside are generally happy. They're excited. They think that they're the chosen people. They think that they are the New Jerusalem, God's going to come down in a few months and take them to heaven, all of that. So Dan mentions that people have this like mass hysteria, and some people think it might be ergot poisoning, which I don't think is true, because that's same thing with the witch trials. Like afterwards, people are going to be like, "Ooh, we're sorry, we got really weird." Like
I
people are
mean,
going to
religious fanaticism isn't that abnormal.
No, I know exactly. I don't think it's a poison in your brain. I think it's just like
Yeah,
mass
I think it's just
hysteria.
like fanaticism.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So the Prince Bishop obviously is not happy. He got kicked out with everybody else. So he camps outside the city and waits. So he builds like another city outside of Munster, essentially, where he is like just like waiting and keeping Munster under siege. They can't get out. They can't get any supplies. He's just like standing there. So in April, there is a battle kind of at like the main gate of Munster, and Jan Matthis had said, and this is only two. He's been there like from January to April. He's been there like 3 months, and he said that Easter was the day that the rapture was going to come, all this stuff was going to happen. Of course, it doesn't. Jan Matthis and a group of guys go out to try to fight the Prince Bishop. They lose. They all die. Jan Matthis' head gets cut off, put on a spike, and his genitals get nailed to the door, which is gross.
Do we
So
know for
now,
sure it's his genitals?
great question. I don't know for sure. No.
Okay, well, see, these are the questions we got to ask.
Yeah. I also feel like after, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know how you would know.
Kind of gross, right? When you think about it, when you start dwelling on it, somebody had to hold it
I definitely
with
don't want
one
like a
hand, and then
pile of,
they had to cut it with the other hand, and then they had to like hold it up with blood pour. It's just like it's just
no,
yeah.
gross job. So he was the leader and he's dead. And it's been a couple months. People are like, well, what are we going to do? So of course, JVL has always been there. He, was a person who stabbed the blacksmith. He's been like working his way up. He's been preaching, and he also came from like Holland, from north, and he heard there were opportunities in Munster to preach. He was a failed tailor and a failed actor and like a million other things, and was like, I think I could make my living preaching, which kind of reminds me of remember when Van Gogh thought he could do that, but
I
people were
don't
like,
remember that.
well, back when we talked about Van Gogh like 2 years ago, he went to England and tried to be a preacher. But people were like, this is way too much for me because he had a really thick accent and was really, 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 really excited about God. And people were like, But I feel like JVL is like that, but people love it in this time. Like
It
they
also
want the
reminds
kind
me
of
a little.
crazy.
It also reminds me a little of There Will Be Blood, where like
Yes.
if you're like just crazy enough and just lacking in morals enough, you can be like a very successful preacher.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. So JVL takes charge. He's like, I'll be in charge now that Jan Matthis is dead. He was obviously married in Holland because of course he was, and like left his wife to go be a preacher. I feel like that happens 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And so he like left her, was like, I'll be back, never went back. He also then the first person he marries in Munster, he marries Nipperdaling's daughter. He also then is like, I want to marry other people, which is very David Koresh of him. So he says that, the Bible says, I don't know who, King David had a bunch of wives or whatever, so everyone should have whatever many wives that they want. There were definitely more women than men in the city. Some of the Catholic nuns, they were no longer Catholic nuns anymore, so they were like young women who were, of marrying age, whatever that means. And so men could have more than one wife all of a sudden, which cults do all the time. They love that shit.
But I also think that back then, that's probably not a bad idea because, like, again, nobody exists back then because we just died so frequently.
That's true. I mean, one of your wives is definitely going to die in childbirth, if not more than one.
Yeah, so like have like seven of them because you know that four of them are gonna die, and then like they're each gonna have seven kids, and eight of those are gonna die. Well, that is math. That math doesn't add up, but
But
still,
you know what I mean. Yeah, I know what you
because
mean.
so I was just listening to this Freakonomics episode about the brown rat and how reviled it is in the U.S. especially,
Hmm.
and they were talking about how I never thought about it this way, but they were like, yeah, every female rat after 3 months can produce a litter of at least eight other rats, and every one of those goes into gestation 3 months later. And he was asking like, why is nothing else evolved like that? And like because rats are the like biggest prey animal there is. So like they're literally
Hmm.
made to be eaten. And so as a
Hmm.
result, because they die so often, they have to reproduce a lot. So do that with humans. I'm not saying humans are rats. I'm just saying like we were like rats because we died really fast.
Yeah, I'm coming over to this side. Yes, because
All
also
right. So
like
you heard it here
your wife.
first that Taylor is pro polygamy.
I mean, your wife's gonna die, and you're gonna marry someone else anyway, and then she's gonna die. So you might as well do it all at once.
Yeah, and then your husband's gonna get like his legs blown off. Oh, not even that. His pinky's blown off, and that's gonna be like a infection that'll kill him.
Right, but then what do you do when the husband like falls into a poop hole in the middle of town and dies, and there's seven wives and 400 children to take care of, and there's no man?
Yeah, they just all die in poverty horribly. It's a horrible time to be like. Again, everybody who thinks that the world sucks today, you wouldn't
Hasn't
last
been
five
anywhere
minutes
else.
in the
Yeah.
1500s.
No, absolutely terrible. But now they can marry whoever they want. In the movie, they're like, if the woman doesn't scream bloody murder, then a guy can just take her. Which again, not great. And obviously they're young as well. So, but he also marries Jan Matthis' widow. She's kind of the queen. She's in the movie, it's very clear that she has the nicest clothes. She's just like the she came down, she had the nicest stuff, and she's like the queen. JVL is like the king. And later one of his wives is going to be beheaded because she didn't like go along with what he said, but generally like he had a bunch of wives, maybe up to 16. They've also taken everyone's stuff. So in the vein of equality, they've taken all the jewels from all the people that they made leave and from everybody there. Like let's even it out. Let's take all the money. We'll take care of everybody. So they've taken all the jewels. At some point, someone melts down all the jewels and makes JVL literally a crown and like crowns him with it. So like you won't be surprised to know that like he has nice stuff, even though nobody else has nice stuff.
No,
In the
no
It's
way.
wild. So in the first half of the TV movie, he looks like Jesus. He's wearing robes and it's Christoph Waltz has like a beard, looks like Jesus. The second half, like immediately he's wearing like a really nice like outfit, like he's obviously like taking good care of himself. Um, so sometimes some of the people like there's one thing I read that said that people were like asked to like go around naked because they were trying to be like as even as possible, but also it's cold, so I feel like that there's no way people went with that. But they're in their city, it's under siege. John Matthias died on Easter 1534. The city is under siege until June 1535. So a little bit over a year, they stay in the city without any supplies, without like adding any new things. So that means no food. So people start eating the animals. They eat horses, then dogs and cats, then rats, then their shoes. Then they start eating each other, digging up bodies and eating them 'cause people are just dying. People are like literally starving to death in there. And JVL keeps being like, it's okay because we're going to be saved. His motto is Gottes Macht ist mein Kraft, which means God's might is my strength. So you're starving to death, but you have this man being like, we are the chosen people. We are going to be okay. Just wait, just wait, just wait. So I read on Wikipedia that one historian was like, okay, well, all of the information we have about this are from people who won this like battle and didn't and are not the Anabaptists. We don't have their side of the story. If we had their side of the story, we might have heard that like it was nice that you could share everything and people were really happy. But I feel like that is
Horseshit.
still
That is absolute
horseshit. And I feel like it
horseshit.
also is like the women were not happy, no matter what. Like
Like
no,
every example where we did this as a society,
it doesn't work.
it has never worked and
Yeah.
nobody's been happy for it.
Yeah. So I was like, that's crap. I don't think it.
Hey, can you remind me
So
the name of the movie that Christoph Waltz was in?
yeah, it's A King for Burning. Might be I have the IMDb link. I wonder what they call it on IMDb. Hold on. Yeah, A King for Burning from
Oh, it's old. Okay,
1993.
93.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's
Yeah.
it. I was tired of constantly searching for it.
No, totally. No, you want to like see their faces. Christoph Waltz is so cute. He's such like a he's like a little guy and then he's like can be so bad. So this is happening. Things are probably really, really bad. There are some spies during the siege, so some people do go in and out. They pretend to like defect and they come back, and like some people get killed. There's a young woman who says that she'll go out and try to poison the Prince Bishop, but like she gets caught. Basically, the Prince Bishop is like standing outside the wall every day, being like, "Give this up. Give me my city back. Everyone stop." And
It's
you
like
can like
this is
hear him yelling.
ridiculous. We
Yeah,
all know it's
cut it out.
ridiculous. Everybody hates it here.
Yeah. The real Martin Luther like wrote a letter that was like, no, this is dumb. Like this is not anything that I preached at all. Like this is not no good. Um, but they're still going
But again, the
and
original intent was to live as closely to the telling of the Bible
yeah.
as possible. That was the
Hmm.
original intent.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is even worse time to be alive.
Which is infinitely worse.
The further it just gets worse and worse. Um, so eventually the Prince Bishop and his forces attack the city. Maybe at night by accident because people outside the city were drunk a lot of the time because they were just like hanging out on doing this siege. But in the city they were not drunk because there was no alcohol because either they like drank it all or they were like, you know, not doing it because of religion or whatever. So the people on the Prince Bishop side were a little bit of a mess. But they did end up attacking and like getting into the city and a ton of people died. They were like burning things down. People were dying. The queen gets decapitated along with some other people. Um, JVL was found hiding in a cellar because, of course, he was hiding in a cellar and not like out there trying to like be save the people. I did look it up that there's a 50-50 about Koresh taking his own life, but he might have done that. Um, so JVL tried to make a bargain with the Prince Bishop. He said, "Why don't you take me on tour and show me to people around Germany for a penny a piece, and you can make a ton of money." They do that in the movie, but I don't think they did that in real life. But essentially, people would like pay to go see him and laugh at him. But I don't think that really happened. Um, but he was taken to a prison outside of Munster and then brought back. And on January 22nd, 1536, he was tortured and killed. Um, Bernard Kreuting and Nipperdalling were also killed with him at the same time. What they did is they tied them to a pole and spent like an hour or so just burning them with like a hot poker. So they would like poke him on the sides. In the movie, they burn off his nipple. Real gross. They have like these like tongs that are like really red hot and like pinch them with the tongs. So they're being burned and tortured. Then they cut off their tongues and then they kill them by stabbing them in the chest with a burning spike.
You know what's funny is it reminds me of like how people who are like so out of touch with everything else, like it's not that bad. People don't hate me that much. It's all good.
Yeah.
And then they like catch you and like, oh, we gotta like make this the worst punishment possible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really, really bad. So their bodies were hung in these metal cages from St. Lambert's Church in Munster. They were
I
there
saw that.
to,
That
yeah.
was wild. I thought that they were in there alive. I was like, that's fucking terrifying.
I thought that at first too, like in Willow, but no, they were in there. They're in there dead, but they removed their bones 50 years later. So they were there until they were bones. I'm sure like birds were eating them, all that stuff. And the cages are still there today. The with the whole church was redone in the 1800s, and then it was bombed on November 18th, 1944. One cage fell to the ground, another one hit the organ, and the third one dangled. They were repaired in 1948. So the original cages are there, but the church has been repaired. And since 1987, they light up at night as a reminder
Come on, so they're
of,
still foisted
yeah,
in the air.
yeah,
That's how much you're hated. That
yeah. Yeah. They're still there, and they put them back after the church was destroyed during the war, so they put them back after it as well. The city obviously was a disaster, but it returned to Catholic control, and they were able to like put things back together. But it was like a crazy year and a half in Munster.
yeah, wild.
Yeah. Um, and that's it. And then I have like post Women's History Month, I have something that's like not related, but feels a little bit related that I'll talk about later that I'll bring up again. But another story for the future. But that is the story of the Münster Rebellion and the Anabaptists. And a
I
lot
love
of people died for
uprisings.
no fucking reason. Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
They would have died anyways, Taylor. Like honestly, who gives a
I
shit?
know. I
Like,
mean, like we wouldn't have known their names anyway. How many of these like walled cities people just like lived their life until they were 35 and died of old age.
yeah.
Most of them. And
You
there's no
mean
way you're gonna
died at
stop.
35 at an old age.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Right.
And there's no one where like the church doesn't have all the money. Oh my God, also, I wonder if the Pope's gonna die by the time this comes out.
Yeah, what is going on with him?
He's like might be dead, and they're like he's on like a ventilator. He's not doing well.
Pope Francis is in critical condition and showing mild signs of Is he really that old?
He's 88, I thought.
I will say, out of all the popes, I like him the most. He's definitely better than the last guy.
Yeah. Oh, he doesn't look good. He's
He's
88,
88
yeah.
years old. Yeah. 88's not that crazy old.
He
He got weird looking
looks like he gained a lot of weight in his
face.
face. So maybe he's on like medication and stuff. His name is
Yeah.
Jorge. Jorge Mario Berliojo. He's Argentinian. Anyway. Um, he has siblings. That's weird. Not weird, but like that is weird. What if your brother was the Pope? What does your brother do? Oh, he's the Pope. Ugh. And he's
Ugh.
us. Oh, they also are church
Parents
people.
parents always take his side in every argument.
Just because I have this tech job, mom, doesn't mean that.
I'm sorry, I'm only a
Pope is
neurosurgeon, Mom. I wish I was the
sorry.
Pope.
Yeah, he's not doing well. Oh yeah, that was 51 minutes ago. He's in critical condition. So we'll see if we have a Pope by Wednesday when this comes out.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Anything else, Taylor? That was fun.
Thanks. Yeah, it was super fun. I'm gonna go out of medieval times into something more modern that I have been talking to my children about. So my first Women's History Month, I read a kid's book to like a kid's chapter book to my kids about it, and we've been talking about it a lot. So I'm excited
Very fun.
to share that with you. And yeah, anyone, if you have any ideas for us, Women's History Month and beyond, doomedtofailpod@gmail.com, on social media, doomed to fail pod. Find us, talk to us, tell your friends. Please put a review on Apple Podcasts. We have some, and I'm so appreciative of them. Or any like random corner of the world where you listen.
If you make us famous, we will make you famous by calling out and shouting out a listener once a week.
Do you remember when last podcast listed every one of their Patreon people at the end of every episode?
You were one of them, and I cut it out. I couldn't listen to it.
No, I listened to it at one point just to hear my name, but it took a long last time.
Yeah, it was like the last 17 minutes of an episode, and they just
Exactly.
literally read the names nonstop.
But yeah, thank you. That's fun. I learned a
Um,
lot. I feel like my German is just so terrible also that I like took German for like 8 years, and watching this movie, I was like, oh my God, I'm dumb. Also, if anyone watches the movie, please let me know because I think that there's this thing that I've seen in horror movies from Europe in the 80s and 90s where I think that people are speaking whatever language is most comfortable for them and it's all dubbed over. So the lips match the words for like the guy playing the Prince Bishop, but the woman playing the Queen, she's Spanish and her lips do not match the words. So I think that they're doing the thing where she's doing her lines in Spanish, he's doing his lines in German, and they're putting them over. Because I've seen that in like
Interesting.
some weird horror movies as well, and I'm like, what is this? But it was like a style that they did in Europe, in the 80s and 90s.
There's literally no German women they could have hired for this.
I'm sure there were plenty. I mean, there were other German women in it, but their lips matched the words. But I was like, I can't stare at this any longer because I'm trying to like find the
Yeah,
German words in the sentence and then
so
also the
annoying.
Spanish lips.
Every now and then, Netflix in particular has a thing where it'll like if you pause it and you play it, it'll be like a tenth of a second lag from the audio starting versus the video,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just off. And like, I can't do this anymore. I gotta go.
Yeah, yeah. No, I also like a lot of the like voiceovers. I don't. They sound terrible.
Agreed.
y- You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for staying around for that 2 second conversation.
Again, please write to us at doomnflpod@gmail.com. Find us on the socials at doomnflpod, and comment on our TikTok, which Taylor is super proactive about, and I'm
I will
boycotting.
respond.
But
How moral of you.
I'm a very yeah, I can't even go there.
Talk with your money or whatever. You know what I mean? Anyway, oh, we have 839 followers on TikTok.
We literally need to stop announcing our numbers so that people assume that we're bigger than we are.
I know that sounds terrible, but it's so much more than we had last week.
I know, but they don't need to know that. Guys, we have
Fine.
8 million listeners, and you're just one of many.
I mean, you are one of many.
That's
That's
true.
many.
That is many.
Anyway, thanks,
Great.
Faris.
We'll go ahead and cut this off.